So my name is Bobby Davis. I'm from Coder Foundry, and we're a coding boot camp. We teach people .NET all over the country. We also do training for corporates and also run a consulting company, and we build software for a lot of people. Lastly, I can't mention the company name, but they do 97 trillion tree bills, $97 in tree bills a month. So pretty big company. And one thing we run into, the most important thing that I think everyone needs to learn about, if you're aspiring to be a web developer, you're writing code, you're building websites, you need to be able to do three things: stand up an API, consume an API, and work maintenance on API, whether that's with PHP, Laravel, Java. I happen to be in the C# land. And so Microsoft has some great things coming out. .NET 10 will come out next month. It's in RC1 right now, and so the big talk in RC1 is, and .NET 10 is about minimal APIs. But one of the things when you talk about minimal APIs is you get this. You go to Reddit and you say, hey, should I really get into this minimal API thing? And this is what you see. You see an example in Program CS, and Microsoft comes out with this fantastic example where they shoved 16 endpoints in one file, and everyone thinks like, yeah, we're not doing that. Like, you understand? I read these in Reddit, like, we have 1,000 endpoints at our company. There's no way we're going to put 20 engineers on one file. The merge complex would be crazy. We can't do that. And I'm screaming at Reddit, which, has anyone ever screamed at Reddit? It's like, dude, no one's working in one file, but like, that's what these people think. And so they'll say, and you'll see this, you could probably search it up right now, it's great for demos, it's not for production. And it's hard to test, and it's hard to scale, and no one's using this in any shop in the world, which is completely inaccurate. Like, people are using this a lot, and they should be, and we're going to talk about why you should. But imagine if you went to a job interview, right? And they asked you to like refactor a Java to a C# thing. They said, can you make this optimized and put it in C# for us? We're going to optimize our whole code base. And you get this take-home test. And on Friday night, you realize, man, they gave me the whole GitHub repo. I mean, the entire thing. And you rewrote their entire legacy system inside of C#, had it working perfectly, and you're going in on Monday, and you show up like this. You got this giant chili stain on your shirt. They ask you, say, can you give me like 3 prime numbers? Can you write an algorithm to give 3 prime numbers? And you said, I can do you better. I can give you the top 7, and in 2 minutes, I'm going to find a brand new one. I'm going to win a Nobel Prize today. You know what they're going to say? We loved your work on the legacy platform. We loved that prime number thing. That was a great trick. That chili shirt, though, we're just going to look in another direction. And that's the problem with this, is that there's perceptions with this. And the perceptions is the name of this thing is called Minimal API. And Microsoft, if anyone around Microsoft a lot, you really do stuff a lot of it, they name stuff great, right? I mean, they're just good at naming things, they'll jump numbers on you, and I was in a GameStop several years ago, and there's this family, and they're trying to buy an Xbox for their son for Christmas. And they were saying, should I get the 360 or the Xbox One? And I hear them talking about it, and the dad saying, 360 is better, right? It's a bigger number. Like, it's a bigger number, and I'm standing behind them, and I'm like, all right, you know what? I said, I'm going to save Christmas for people today. And I went in there, and I was like, I know it's a bigger number, the one's newer. I know it doesn't make sense, but get the Xbox One. Trust me on this. When your son opens an Xbox 360 for Christmas, he ain't going to like that. He's going to shoot Santa, but get him the one, right? So this is the problem we have, is that minimal seems like it's limited, like it's lesser than what MVC controllers are, or lesser than other platforms out there. We're just doing the bare minimum, and it's not really that. And they compound this when they give you an example, and like they shove everything in one file, and you're like, dude, that's not the way this works, And so it creates this bad first impression, like a chili stained shirt. And these first impressions tend to stick around. So when we talk to customers, I always get this feedback. They're like, yeah, minimals, really? That's what we're going to do? I'm like, yeah, there's a reason, right? And we'll talk about it in a second. But going back to GameStop, I always wondered, like, that kid at Christmas, and I saved this Christmas, what did he turn out to be? I always wondered, did he start a conference, or did he like do something really big? I always wondered if that ever happened. But maybe it did. I don't know. Some people start conferences. I say Christmas. They may not be equal, but Christmas is better. But we need to talk about why minimal APIs. Well, they're lightweight, and when I say they're fast, they're blazingly fast. Like, it's really quick. In fact, if you're running in Azure right now and you have an MVC controller and you just replaced it with a minimal API, peer-to-peer, no enhancements, it's going to use less memory at startup. It's going to start up a lot quicker. It's just faster. It just is. If you're coming from something like Node.js and going to minimal APIs, it's not even in the same ballpark. Now, it doesn't really matter for most projects. But if you're transmitting $97 trillion worth of T-bills on a monthly basis, suddenly, you have to look around and try to find the points you can. So this is blazingly fast. The biggest thing about this, and this is the pattern from Blazor to APIs, is that they're being very pattern agnostic. So where MVC said, you got to do it this way, and this is my way or the highway, and you can't do anything different. And people are like, well, I don't want to do it that way. So they pick a different framework. And now with Blazor and with minimal APIs, you can pick whatever pattern, how you want to do it. And because it's pattern agnostic, they throw out a simple example and they just shove it in Program CS, and everyone goes, can you just tell me how to do it? And you're like, well, I thought you wanted us not to tell you how to do it. So like, I can understand where Microsoft gets a lot of hate for this. The biggest one here is that minimal APIs don't include a view engine. So with MVC controllers, you get everything, and that's the great thing about MVC controllers. The bad thing is you get everything, right? So it's slow startup. You get a view engine. It returns a view. You don't get this. This is API first, and then you can start small and you can scale your structure up. You can start in Program CS, like the sample is, or you can go all the way out to some stuff we'll show you in a second. And you get the full .NET, DI, dependency injection, validation, which is new for .NET 10. Open API, we'll show the documentation, and then AOT, which is ahead of time transpile. So that's really, really where you get your speed from. You don't get this inside of this. So let's look real quick here. MVC, full web stack. It's got some scaffolding, makes things cool. Super heavy if you're just making an API. Minimal API is lightweight, high performance, pattern agnostic, full .NET. Has less scaffolding, a lot more code for us to write, but you would get the trade-offs there. And then simply, if you're looking at JS backends, they're a little bit slower and they're dynamically typed. You don't have something like C#. But, let's look into what we could structure this as. So the big thing that we want to come away from here is we want to remove these get, map.get, map.post, map.whatever inside of Program CS. We're going to move them somewhere else so that we can keep our Program CS kind of clean. And this is a simple structure I could come up with without going into any specific pattern. So if you don't like this pattern, I hope what you can take away from this is do whatever you want. Do it however you want to do it. I'm just going to show you the magic here. And the real magic is we got to write an extension method. An extension method allows us to group endpoints and map them. And this is what you find programmers yelling at Reddit. It's like, you guys know what an extension method is? It's been around forever, right? And so but a lot of people, when I talk to them, they don't know what it is. So we can make our endpoints live outside of Program CS, and we can group them by feature, group by domain, you can group vertical slice, you can do a Reaper pattern, whatever you want to do. And then your Program CS stays clean and it's not in there like you want to do it. And to reiterate, you can group them however you want to do it. All right, so we're going to try to write some code here, but it looks like we're in like 480p over here. So I'm going to see if I can make this a little smaller. Maybe 50%, maybe something like that. Can we see that? All right, so this is huge. We won't be able to see a lot of this, but I don't know why it's so big, but whatever. Program CS is our main entry point here. And you can see here, even today in .NET 10, this is Visual Studio 2026, and then I'm running .NET 10 RC1. So this is like the newest thing out there. You run the sample, and they still put your endpoints inside of Program CS. They even have this variable here inside of CSS inside the Program CS that supports this, and even have a record down in here too. So they just shove all this stuff in here, and if you're like, you can't write code that way, and that's true. So this is the magic here. So we have here's what's called an extension method. And this extension method allows us to group endpoints. And so if you look at here, this top here, the reason this is extension method is static and it's public, and it participates in this interface called endpoint route builder, which just means that if I pass it a route builder, then it'll take the routes that it currently has registered and append to them, right? And so that's why it's called an extension method. We can call this any number of times. So we can make a map customer, a map order, a map products, a map admin, whatever, and it's just going to attack all the routes on them and register the routes inside of our server for us. Now, inside of here, we have some really, really kind of interesting things here that's going on. We can make a group, and here's where you see but other languages, you'll have a route file or something like that. We're defining here what is the base level route for all of these endpoints. And that could be all our gets, posts, puts, and everything. And so I have an API/customer route. This could be anything you want, and this is whatever you name it. And then, this is kind of cool here, we have add endpoint filter. And I'm going to try to show you that real quick. And this is one of the things that I did. I wrote another extension. This is like crazy. Get an arrow key here. And so we have this exception endpoint filter. I wrote another one that basically allows me to run the endpoint, and then every one of those endpoints gets pushed into this, essentially a try-catch. And I can catch server 100, server 500s right here. So I don't have to write a try-catch in all of my code everywhere. I write it in one place. And you can do this for anything. You can filter for 400s, anything that you want, special ones, 302s, whatever you want to do, and you can just pass it in here. And notice the other thing that I do inside of .NET here that I have is the ability to check the runtime environment so that I can say, if it's in development, show me the message. If it's not in development, don't show the message. If it's in production, you don't want to leak out special information, stuff like that. So just another side thing. It's not really an API thing. It's more of like, hey, .NET's kind of cool. All right, so now that we have this here, I've got all these maps in here, and I know this is really like super big. I keep saying that, but it's really big. And I've got these, I got a get customer by ID, I've got a create customer, a post here, and this is just the declaration for the route, and I return this group, and it appends it. And down here, I made this look like a controller where I just basically put my static methods that does my business logic. I also have a service method here that does the Indy framework calls. The reason we do that is because typically we're writing a Blazor app. Blazor have server-side components. We have an API that services the front end. And so our service layer can service the back end, and then we can still use it inside of our API endpoints. But however you want to do it. You could put all of your code right here if you want to do that, however you want to do it. This could go in a different file altogether. So when we run this, if I can run it now, where's my run? Hit F5. If we run this, we can see kind of the where's my F5? F5 doesn't work. Yeah. I'm going to use it. We'll give up here in a second. There it goes. All right, so it's going to go through a build, and I'm going to show you something else. There's also the Open API spec here that's kind of cool, and this is Scalar. I don't know why. I'm going to zoom down on this here. We'll try anyway. And you can see here I've got my endpoints in here, and I've got that weather forecast right here. And I can run this. And it tells me what I can do, and I can run a test request. And it'll come back with a response. I wish this wasn't so big, but command minus. All right, that's a little better. And see, this comes back and runs, and it's kind of cool, right? So what if we could get our customer endpoints in there? So we'll just write a little code here real quick. And we'll go through it. And from here, I've got this method here called map customer endpoint. And I can come in here and now, because I can write some code in here, just app.map customer endpoints. Let's build. This is just throwing me off big time. Good. And so now what we can do is we can look at it and see now we have this customer drop down in here. So now I have all of these endpoints in here that are registered in there. So I didn't have to like change that it works, and I can run a test here. And this repo that you can grab will also create a SQLite database for you, so you don't even have to like do the data. It does all of it for you. And see, we've got these names coming back in here. We also can kill this. We can run a get by ID. I can test this one. And this is scalar. It's kind of cool. But it's not cool when you have like 32 scroll bars going on. So, and we can send it a value of like, let's see, did I write the right one or wrote the wrong one? Yeah, value. Where's my input? Let's do get by ID. Let's do that one first. Can't see it. And so here you can just run a the ID, hit 12 or something like that. It'll come back and run it for us. So now it's like hand shoe list. So the other thing that we can do is we also can show you real quickly how to like where you would enhance this, where you'd write your actual code at. And you can see I've got my groups here, and this is going to be exceptionally hard, but that's all right. We can do it. And here I've got this throw not implemented. So what we can do is we can just write var, something like created customer. Stop it first. This is where you would write your code. Something like this to rerun the method here. So it's pretty simple for us to do. Equals, and then wait. The thing I'll notice too, for free here inside of .NET, also these cancellation tokens, which are really cool. If you have a long-running process, an API, or you can pass it a cancellation token that automatically takes care of that. It knows that the user's closed the browser or whatnot. And we could return a typed result. Usually I get anyway, I won't bore you with the demo. We'll go forward in a second here, but in general, you can key takeaways is that you can have a naming and examples, give minimal if it has a bad impression. The structure and the extension methods unlock the scalability. So if you can just write the extension method, you can group them however you want. You could bring a Reaper pattern, vertical slice, repository services, whatever you want to do. Built-in validation, DI, Open API, AOT, full.NET, and it's lightweight and it's extremely quick. So if you're looking for performance, Minimal API should be on your list. If you're looking at a .NET project today and you thought you were going to write it as a controller backend and you're not using MVC, then API should be the thing you pick at this point. So anyway, with that, we can stop and ask some questions. Sorry for the 480p monitor there on the other, I don't know what that deal was, so couldn't see it. Any questions? All right, well, I ended 5 minutes early, so appreciate you guys. If you want to reach out to me, you definitely can find me on Twitter, and you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm also sometimes on YouTube, so I have a YouTube channel, so just take a look up for Coder Foundry, anything. I'm usually around there, and that's my Twitter handle if you want to follow me there. All right, appreciate it. Thanks for your time.